Rain slams the roof of a crowded highway fuel stop, while a security guard shouts that the homeless man has 30 seconds to move or the police are coming. Drivers lean on their horns, phones already raised, recording. In the center of the chaos, a lean German shepherd sits perfectly straight beside the man's knee, leash loose, eyes calm, ignoring the noise like it was trained for storms and sirens. A little girl slips from her father's side and points at the dog, asking if they can buy him for $5. The father freezes when the dog looks up and locks onto him with disciplined recognition, not begging, not fear, but memory. The guard reaches for the leash. The shepherd shifts half a step forward, silent warning, controlled and precise. The crowd gasps. Someone yells that it's a police dog. Sirens rise somewhere beyond the highway. The girl whispers, "Daddy, he knows you. If he steps in now, everything changes. If he walks away, he loses him forever." What would you do? Tell us below and subscribe to Brave Canine Stories before this moment turns dangerous. The fuel pump clicks off, and Marcus barely notices because his attention is no longer on the meter or the rain or the long road ahead. His daughter Lily is still talking about her school project, about colored paper and a cardboard volcano, but her voice fades behind the quiet pull of something across the lane. He turns his head and sees the German shepherd again, sitting beside the weathered man with a cardboard sign. At first it is just a dog in a public place, nothing unusual, but then his training begins to whisper small details into focus. The spine is straight. The front paws are aligned evenly instead of splayed. The ears are forward but not tense. The dog is not begging for food, not scanning for scraps, not reacting to passing carts. It is watching people the way a professional watches a room. Lily slips her hand from his sleeve and steps closer, kneeling at a safe distance, smiling without fear. The homeless caretaker, Walter, keeps the leash loose in his fingers instead of wrapped tight. His voice is low, respectful, almost apologetic as he answers Lily's questions. Marcus hears a soft command, "Sit," followed by "Stay," and the dog obeys without hesitation, not because of pressure on the leash, but because it understands the words. The obedience is clean, immediate, practiced. Marcus feels the familiar tightening in his chest that comes when old instincts wake without permission. He tells himself it is coincidence. Plenty of dogs are trained. Plenty of dogs sit straight. Then he clears his throat out of habit, a small sound he has made 1,000 times in other places, other years. The shepherd's ears flick toward him instantly. The head turns. The eyes lock. It is not curiosity. It is recognition, and it hits him like a sudden drop in temperature. He notices a faded scar along the dog's shoulder where fur never fully grew back, the mark half hidden but undeniable. The image overlaps with a memory he avoids visiting, smoke rolling along warehouse rafters, the roar of an explosion, the heat of flames, the moment he believed he had lost his partner forever. He looks away for a second, breath shallow, then looks back because he cannot help it. Around them the plaza hums with ordinary life, engines idling, vending machines buzzing, rain streaking neon reflections across wet asphalt. But the ordinary rhythm begins to crack when a security guard strides closer, voice sharp, insisting that animals are not allowed and threatening to call authorities if the man does not move. Drivers waiting for pumps start honking. Impatient voices rise. The environment shifts from neutral to tense in slow layers. Lily glances back at her father, sensing the change without understanding it. Walter murmurs another quiet command, "Down," and the dog lowers smoothly, chin lifted, eyes still alert, still calm. No bark, no resistance. Just control. Marcus's gaze drifts to the collar and catches on a frayed strip of fabric stitched beneath the buckle. It looks like the edge of a unit patch, scorched and worn. He tells himself it is nothing, but the denial feels weaker now. His heart beats louder than the horns behind him. He steps closer without realizing he is moved, drawn by details he does not want to acknowledge. The dog rises slowly, takes 2 measured steps, and lifts one paw, placing it lightly against his knee. Not begging. Not playful. Greeting. The exact gesture only one dog ever used. Marcus steps back as if burned, mind racing, trying to bury the implication before it surfaces fully. Lily laughs softly, thinking the dog is simply friendly, unaware of the storm breaking open inside her father. The guard's voice grows louder, rain falling harder, phones beginning to lift in curious hands. Marcus feels the pressure building from every direction, but all he can see is the paw against his knee and the steady eyes that refuse to forget him. The first laugh is loud enough to slice through the rain. Two men in grease-stained work jackets step out from under the convenience store awning, their boots splashing through shallow puddles as they approach Walter and the dog. One of them points at the cardboard sign and snorts, calling it a clearance sale for a broken mutt. The other echoes him, louder, enjoying the attention it draws. Within seconds, the loose circle of travelers becomes a half-ring of spectators. Phones rise almost in unison, tiny screens glowing under the gray sky. The plaza shifts from background noise to an audience, and Marcus feels the weight of eyes settle on him without anyone saying his name. He keeps his posture neutral, one hand resting lightly on Lily's shoulder, but the scrutiny tightens when he opens his wallet to pay for fuel, and the corner of his badge flashes in the fluorescent light. A stranger mutters that a cop should know better than to deal with street sellers. Another voice questions whether buying a trained police dog is illegal. The tone changes from idle curiosity to judgment. It is not hostile yet, but it is no longer kind. Marcus becomes aware of how every small movement can be misread when a camera is pointed at it. He closes his wallet slowly and steps back into the rain, choosing calm over defense. The two men drift closer to Walter, their laughter softening into something more deliberate. They do not touch him, but they crowd his space, shoulders squared, testing how far they can push without crossing a clear line. One of them bends slightly toward Lily and asks if she wants a discount, his voice playful but edged with mockery. Before Marcus can respond, the German Shepherd rises in a single smooth motion and steps sideways, placing its body between the men and the child. No growl. No snap. Just a quiet wall of muscle and intent. The leash remains loose in Walter's hand. The dog's tail stays low, controlled, the message clear without sound. A murmur ripples through the onlookers, surprise replacing amusement for a moment. Across the lot, a faint whistle cuts through the drizzle. The dog's ears twitch, head turning a few degrees toward the sound, then returning immediately to Marcus, as if the whistle never mattered. The selective obedience sends a chill through him. Most strays would look, wander, react. This one chooses its focus. Lily smiles at the dog, as if it just performed a polite trick, unaware that Marcus's mind is racing through old training manuals and field memories he thought were buried. Walter tries to calm the situation by explaining how he found the dog months ago, near an abandoned freight depot on the edge of the city, injured and tangled in a broken chain collar. He mentions a stamped serial number, only half visible, burned and worn, but still there. The detail is spoken casually, almost apologetically, yet it lands heavily in Marcus's thoughts. Serial numbers are not random. They belong to records, to departments, to histories that can be traced. He files the information away without showing interest, his face remaining neutral while his attention sharpens. The crowd's reaction becomes layered. Some people defend Walter, saying the dog looks well behaved. Others insist rules are rules and animals do not belong near fuel pumps. The security guard circles back, radio crackling at his shoulder, voice firmer now, hinting at trespassing charges. Rainwater runs along the painted lines of the asphalt, reflecting flashing phone screens like scattered stars. Lily steps forward and asks why adults are being mean to a dog that is sitting so nicely. Her question cuts through the noise with disarming clarity, earning a few embarrassed smiles and a few irritated scoffs. The two men exchange a glance after noticing the faded scar on the dog's shoulder. Their expressions change from playful to knowing, their whispers too low for others, but loud enough for Marcus to sense the shift. The plaza still hums with engines and rain, but something colder slides beneath the surface. The mockery has done its work. The public pressure has formed, and now the tension feels less like a scene and more like the opening move of something planned. The laughter fades and the two men change tactics with a subtlety that almost feels polite. One of them crouches slightly beside Walter, lowering his voice, offering folded bills in exchange for a private word near the store entrance where the rain cannot reach. The other gestures toward the awning, smiling, as if he is doing a favor. It is not loud anymore, not mocking, just persistent. Marcus recognizes the strategy immediately. Move the caretaker away. Separate the leash from the dog. Remove the one person standing between ownership and confusion. Walter hesitates, eyes flicking from the money to the shepherd, then to Lily's hopeful face. His grip tightens instead of loosening, knuckles pale around the worn leather loop. Marcus shifts his stance without drawing attention, placing himself closer to Lily while keeping the dog in view. The plaza noise continues around them, engines rumbling, tires hissing through puddles, but the space between the four adults narrows into something more deliberate. The security guard steps aside to answer his radio, distracted for a moment, and the men use that opening to lean in again, their voices coaxing now instead of taunting. Walter shakes his head, murmuring that he cannot leave the dog unattended. The shepherd responds to a quiet command, heel, gliding to Walter's side with perfect alignment. Another soft word, down, and the dog lowers smoothly despite the honking cars and flashing phones. The obedience is effortless, practiced, unwavering. Marcus feels the weight of recognition pressing harder against his thoughts, but he channels it into action instead of emotion. Without lifting his gaze, he tilts his phone as if checking a message and taps the screen twice. The first image captures the frayed fabric beneath the dog's collar buckle, the scorched edge that resembles a unit patch. The second frames the two men standing shoulder to shoulder, one sleeve rolled just enough to reveal a faded tattoo curling around his wrist. The motion is quick, invisible to anyone not looking for it. To the crowd, he is just another bystander scrolling through notifications. To himself, he is storing proof that might matter later, a habit born from years of reports and courtrooms. The emotional undercurrent swells as old memories surface uninvited. Training fields at dawn. The steady rhythm of boots on gravel. The calm tone of commands spoken into cool morning air. He almost hears his own voice, layered over Walter's whisper, a ghost of partnership echoing through the present. Lily squeezes his hand, grounding him, her attention fixed on the dog's calm eyes. She sees kindness. He sees history trying to reassemble itself. Rising stakes arrive with the plaza manager storming out of the convenience store, clipboard tucked under one arm, voice sharp with authority. He announces that animals are not permitted near the pumps and threatens fines for non-compliance. The words carry weight, shifting the tension from social discomfort to official pressure. A few onlookers nod in agreement. Others keep filming, hungry for escalation. Rain thickens, drumming louder on metal and plastic, turning reflections into blurred streaks of color. Marcus steps half a pace closer to the dog, drawn by details he can no longer ignore. Almost without meaning to, he whispers a single word under his breath, a name he has not spoken aloud in years. The shepherd's tail moves once, controlled and deliberate, then returns to stillness as if nothing happened. The reaction is small but undeniable. His throat tightens. Coincidence begins to feel like denial wearing thin. The two men step aside together, their friendliness evaporating. One lifts a phone and makes a brief call, his gaze fixed on the highway entrance beyond the rows of pumps. Minutes later, a dark sedan rolls into the lot and parks with unhurried precision. Doors remain closed. Engines continue humming. The atmosphere shifts from spontaneous chaos to something colder and more organized. Marcus pockets his phone, the images saved, the evidence quiet but secure. Around him the crowd still buzzes with curiosity, but he feels the change like a drop in barometric pressure. What began as mockery has turned into coordination, and the help that once surrounded them now feels thinner, easier to remove. A white pickup rolls slowly into the edge of the lot with no city markings, no light bar, no official seal on the doors. The driver steps out wearing a dark jacket with a stitched patch that looks convincing at a distance, but begins to fall apart the closer he walks. He flashes a generic metal badge too quickly to read and announces himself as Animal Control, with a voice that expects obedience more than cooperation. The crowd parts just enough to let him through. Phones rise higher. The atmosphere shifts from chaotic argument to forced compliance, as if authority has finally arrived to settle everything. Walter's shoulders sink the moment the word confiscate is spoken. His fingers tighten around the leash and then loosen again, fear battling exhaustion on his face. He asks where the dog will go, how long it will be held, whether he can visit. The man answers with rehearsed impatience, claiming procedures and regulations without naming any. Lily's small hand closes around Marcus's fingers, her grip firm, sensing the threat without understanding the details. Marcus studies the uniform quietly. The stitching is uneven. The boots are not standard issue. The paperwork held in the man's hand has no watermark, no seal, only a photocopied header and a crooked signature line. The pickup behind him carries no cage, no equipment, nothing that suggests official duty. The German Shepherd rises slowly, not aggressive, not loud, but deliberate. Its ears flatten for a second, body angling sideways rather than forward, weight balanced over its paws. A low breath escapes its chest, almost inaudible, more warning than sound. The leash remains loose, yet the space around Walter feels protected. The crowd murmurs, sensing intelligence in the movement. Cameras tilt closer, hungry for a reaction that never comes. The dog does not bark. It simply holds the line with silence. Walter's voice trembles as the man steps closer and reaches for the leash. He talks about fines, about legal consequences, about animal endangerment charges delivered in rapid succession. Each word chips away at Walter's resolve. He glances at the dog, then at the ground, as if weighing companionship against survival. Marcus sees the breaking point approaching like a storm front. He notices the badge again, the cheat clasp, the mismatched belt, the absence of a radio. Authority built from costume rather than credentials. When the man's hand closes around the leash, Marcus speaks one word, calm and low. Easy. The German Shepherd exhales and relaxes instantly, muscles softening without losing awareness. The reaction is immediate and familiar, a bridge between past and present that needs no explanation. The crowd quiets, surprised by the control in a single syllable. Lily looks up at her father with wide eyes, sensing that something deeper just surfaced. The man frowns, irritated by resistance, and demands compliance again, louder this time, trying to pull the leash toward him. Walter's grip wavers. Rain thickens, tapping against metal roofs and plastic signs, amplifying the tension. Phones edge closer, capturing every angle. Marcus steps forward, placing himself between the man and the dog without raising his voice or his hands. He asks for proper identification, for department name, for vehicle number. The questions land like weights. The badge wobbles in the man's grip. The pickup idles behind him, anonymous and unmarked. Around them the semicircle tightens, turning the confrontation into a public stage where silence becomes louder than shouting and the truth begins to strain against its disguise. The dark sedan's doors finally open, slow and deliberate, drawing every nearby phone lens toward the movement. Two men step out with the calm confidence of people who believe the scene is already theirs. Their clothes are clean, their posture relaxed, but their eyes scan the plaza with practiced calculation. They walk straight toward Marcus, ignoring the security guard, ignoring Walter, ignoring the man with the fake badge as if he is nothing more than background noise. The crowd parts again, this time not out of curiosity but instinct, sensing a different kind of authority entering the frame. One of the men stops a few feet from Marcus and studies his face with a faint smile that does not reach his eyes. He says Marcus's last name quietly, almost friendly, then adds former canine handler like a reminder rather than a question. The words hit harder than any accusation. Marcus feels Lily's fingers tighten around his hand, as if she can sense the shift in him. The second man glances at the German Shepherd and shakes his head with a humorless laugh, muttering that some dogs never really die, they just get misplaced. The implication hangs in the air, heavy and unmistakable. They are not guessing. They know. Walter, caught between fear and confusion, reaches into his worn jacket pocket and pulls out a small metal tag wrapped in cloth. He explains that he kept it when he found the dog, thinking it might matter someday. The metal is scorched and bent, edges blackened, but a partial unit code remains etched into its surface. Marcus recognizes the pattern instantly, the numbering style, the spacing, the exact format used by his old precinct. The sight pulls the ground out from under his certainty. Denial, which had been a shield all afternoon, begins to crack along its edges. Lily looks from the tag to the dog and then to her father. She repeats the name she heard him whisper earlier without understanding its weight. The sound of it feels louder than the rain, louder than the engines idling around them. The German Shepherd turns its head slightly at the word but remains seated, posture perfect, tail still, breathing steady. Walter murmurs, "Sit again," and the dog obeys instantly despite the rising hostility and tightening circle of onlookers. The composure is almost unreal, a calm center in a storm of voices and accusations. The two men from the sedan exchange a glance and shift their tone from suggestion to assertion. They claim the dog is evidence tied to a closed investigation, property connected to an operation Marcus once disrupted. Their words are smooth, rehearsed, legal in sound, even if hollow in substance. They talk about interference, about obstruction, about consequences for anyone who attempts to remove the animal from the scene. The crowd reacts with confused murmurs, unsure who now holds legitimate authority. Phones keep recording, but the confidence in their lenses wavers. Marcus feels the past pressing against the present with undeniable force. The scar on the shoulder, the paw against his knee, the selective obedience, the tag in Walter's palm, Lily speaking the name out loud. Each detail stacks on the next until coincidence becomes almost impossible to defend. Yet the men from the sedan stand taller with every revelation, their certainty growing as his wavers. They have shifted the ground beneath him, turning recognition into leverage. The rain lightens for a moment, leaving only the hum of engines and the quiet click of cameras adjusting focus. Marcus looks at the dog and sees not just resemblance, but memory breathing in front of him. The realization forms slowly and then all at once. This might truly be the partner he mourned, the one he believed lost to fire and smoke. But as that truth settles into place, the balance of power tilts away from him. The antagonists stand with legal language and practiced confidence, and for the first time since the encounter began, Marcus feels outmaneuvered, as if the reunion he never expected has become a weapon pointed back at him. The tension thickens until even the rain seems to hesitate, hanging in the air like a held breath. Plaza security returns with 2 additional guards, their radios crackling as they move with forced confidence toward Walter. One of them gestures toward the store entrance, insisting he needs to leave immediately or face removal. The man with the generic badge reappears from the side of the lot, this time flanked by another individual wearing a similar jacket, both of them speaking over one another with rehearsed authority. Their presence creates the illusion of official weight, and for a moment the crowd shifts back, uncertain again about who truly has control. Walter's shoulders sag under the pressure. His fingers tremble around the leash as the guards begin guiding him away, not roughly but firmly, separating him from the only companion he trusts. The German Shepherd rises, alert but silent, eyes tracking every movement. Marcus feels the decision forming inside him like a door slowly swinging shut. He could step back, take Lily, leave the scene before it spirals further. It would be safer, quieter, easier. But the dog's gaze finds him again, steady and familiar, and the option to walk away starts to feel like betrayal rather than relief. The chaos spreads when a delivery truck rolls through the pump lane too quickly, splashing water across the asphalt and startling several onlookers. Lily instinctively steps backward toward the traffic line without realizing it. The German Shepherd moves instantly, not with aggression but with precision, sliding its body sideways and placing its shoulder gently against her knees, guiding her back toward safety. No bark. No snap. Just a calm physical barrier and a soft nudge. The crowd reacts with a collective murmur of surprise, a few voices praising the dog's intelligence. Phones tilt to capture the moment, admiration briefly replacing suspicion. Lily laughs, unaware of how close she came to danger, and wraps her arms around the dog's neck for a second before Marcus gently pulls her back. That single action settles something inside Marcus. The debate ends. He steps forward instead of away, placing himself between the guards and Walter, his voice steady but firm as he questions their authority to remove the man. The fake badge holder raises his tone, citing regulations and consequences, but the confidence sounds thinner now. The dog returns to a seated position beside Marcus without being told, posture perfect, as if the decision has already been made on both sides of the leash. From the edge of the semicircle, an older man with a weathered face leans closer, studying Marcus with narrowed eyes. He finally speaks, saying he remembers him from years ago, from a warehouse incident that made local news, the officer who survived when everyone thought the K-9 did not. The words ripple through the crowd, quiet but potent. Marcus feels the second clue land, another piece of the past refusing to stay buried. The older man nods toward the dog and mutters that rumors once circulated about a survivor, an animal pulled from debris but never officially recovered. The statement hangs in the air, adding weight to what had been only suspicion. Rising stakes peak when the men from the dark sedan step forward again, demanding immediate transfer of the dog under the claim of evidence custody. Their voices are controlled, legal, almost bored, as if they expect obedience to follow automatically. Security guards hesitate, unsure which authority to follow. The crowd tightens, cameras steady, anticipation building like thunder behind clouds. Sirens begin to echo from somewhere beyond the highway, distant at first, but growing louder with every passing second. The German Shepherd stands, then leans its head lightly against Marcus's leg, a quiet, grounding touch that feels less like instinct and more like recognition. No command is given, none is needed. In that silent contact, Marcus feels the plea without words, a reminder of partnership, of trust, of a bond that survived fire and years of absence. The sound of approaching sirens mixes with the rain, and the entire scene holds on the edge of what will happen next. The moment the line is crossed, it happens fast, almost invisible at first, then impossible to ignore. One of the men from the sedan steps forward with a smile that never reaches his eyes and places a heavy hand on Walter's shoulder. It is not friendly. It is possession disguised as reassurance. Walter stiffens, trying to pull back, but the grip tightens. At the same time, the second man reaches for the leash with sudden impatience, yanking it as if the decision has already been made. The German Shepherd's body shifts a few inches, not resisting, not lunging, simply recalculating balance. The crowd reacts with a sharp intake of breath, phones lifting higher, lenses hunting for the next frame of conflict. Marcus moves before he fully realizes he is moved. His voice cuts through the rain, low and firm, a single command shaped by years of repetition. Stay. The dog freezes instantly, paws planted, spine straight, eyes alert. No bark, no growl. Just absolute control. Yet in the same motion, it angles its body slightly, placing itself between Lily and the men without breaking the command. The precision draws another murmur from the onlookers. The leash remains taut in the antagonist's hand, but the dog does not yield an inch. The silence becomes louder than any shout. Walter struggles to keep his footing as the grip on his shoulder turns into a shove. The humiliation is quiet but visible, his face tightening with helpless frustration. Marcus feels the familiar sting of guilt rising, the memory of smoke and fire and the partner he thought he lost. For a second, the past threatens to paralyze him again. Then Lily's small voice breaks through, asking them to stop. The sound snaps something into place inside him. Guilt shifts into resolve, heavy but steady, no longer a weight dragging him backward, but a force pushing him forward. The antagonist leans closer to Lily and mutters a threat meant only for her ears, but the tone carries. It is not loud, not theatrical, just cold enough to chill the air. Marcus hears it anyway. The plaza noise seems to drop away, replaced by the steady rhythm of rain on metal and the pounding of his own heartbeat. The dog's ears flick once, catching the change in tone, but it remains perfectly still under the command, muscles coiled yet disciplined. The control is almost unnerving, a reminder that obedience can be stronger than aggression. Rising stakes crest as the man tightens his hold on the leash again, trying to drag the dog forward. The German Shepherd does not fight. It simply shifts its weight backward, turning its body into a barrier that protects Lily without disobeying the order. The crowd gasps, sensing the balance between calm and eruption. Cameras inch closer, reflections of flashing screens rippling across the wet asphalt. Marcus steps forward, closing the distance, his posture straight and unyielding. His voice is steady now, louder but not raised, carrying authority that does not need volume. He says they will not take the dog. Not today, not like this. The words land with finality, drawing a stunned silence from the semicircle of spectators. For a heartbeat, everything holds, rain suspended in the air, engines humming in the background. Then the distant sirens swell into clarity, and the first police vehicles roll into the lot, blue and red lights scattering across puddles like broken glass. The crowd parts instinctively, a collective gasp rising as uniformed officers step out. The antagonists hesitate for the first time, their confidence flickering. Marcus remains where he is, one step ahead of Lily, the dog still perfectly still at his side, and the entire scene pivots from intimidation to reckoning in a single breath. Blue and red lights wash across the wet pavement, reflecting off puddles and windshields as two patrol vehicles roll into the lot and stop at measured angles. The sirens cut, leaving only the hum of engines and the soft hiss of rain. Uniformed officers step out with calm efficiency, hands visible, voices steady, moving first to create space rather than confrontation. They guide the crowd back a few steps, asking for room, separating Walter from the men in work jackets, positioning one officer between Lily and the cluster of raised phones. The tension does not explode. It redistributes, controlled and deliberate. Marcus raises his hand slightly and identifies himself without theatrics. He does not argue. He presents facts. He shows the photographs on his phone, the frayed fabric beneath the collar buckle, the clear images of faces and the faint tattoo. He passes over the scorched metal tag Walter kept wrapped in cloth. The retired officer steps forward when asked if anyone witnessed earlier events and calmly recounts what he recognized, the warehouse incident years ago, the rumors that followed. The officers listen, not rushing, not dismissing, their radios murmuring quiet confirmations as names and numbers begin to align. The man with the generic badge tries to assert authority again, lifting the metal shield as if it still holds weight. An officer asks for department identification and vehicle assignment. The answers arrive late and incomplete. Another officer walks to the unmarked pickup, checks the interior, returns with a small shake of the head. The badge is examined, the clasp, cheap, the engraving shallow. Fraud surfaces without shouting. The man's posture changes first, confidence draining before the words are even spoken. One of the sedan occupants suddenly lunges toward the leash, impatience turning reckless. Marcus's voice cuts through the air with a single command. The German Shepherd moves with precise economy, stepping in and gripping the man's sleeve, not flesh, not skin, just fabric. The hold is firm, controlled, exactly long enough to halt momentum. Marcus gives the release command, and the dog lets go instantly, returning to a seated position beside him as if the motion never happened. The crowd exhales in a collective ripple. Cameras lower an inch, respect replacing hunger for spectacle. Checks continue. Identifications are verified. Radios confirm outstanding warrants tied to an older investigation, names matching records that never fully closed. Officers place hands lightly on shoulders, guiding the antagonists toward the vehicles with practiced calm. No one is thrown to the ground. No one shouts. The process unfolds with quiet authority, step by step, paperwork and procedure carrying more force than volume ever could. The fake authority is informed of charges. The men from the sedan are read their rights. The crowd's tone shifts from suspicion to approval, murmurs of relief replacing earlier judgment. Walter stands near the curb, shoulders trembling, watching the dog with a mixture of pride and grief. He kneels slowly and places the leash into Lily's hands. Tears gather at the corners of his eyes as he nods once, acknowledging what he has known for hours but could not say aloud. Lily grips the leather loop carefully, as if it is something sacred. The German Shepherd looks from her to Marcus and back again, calm, grounded, certain. Marcus kneels in the rain without noticing the water soaking through his jeans. He leans close and whispers the name he has carried like a wound and a promise. The dog steps forward and lifts a single paw, resting it against Marcus's chest with the same deliberate gentleness as before. Around them, the phones slowly lower. Conversations soften. The flashing lights continue to paint the pavement, but the noise fades into a respectful hush. In the quiet that follows, reunion replaces conflict, and the bond that survived fire and years of absence settles back into place as if it had only been waiting for this exact moment to breathe again. The flashing lights fade into the distance, and the fuel stop slowly returns to its ordinary rhythm, engines starting, doors closing, travelers moving on. The officers finish their notes and thank the few witnesses who stayed, their voices calm and appreciative rather than formal. One of them shakes Marcus's hand, another kneels briefly to Lily's level and tells her she did the right thing by speaking up earlier. The tension that filled the air for hours dissolves into quiet conversation and soft rain, leaving behind the feeling of something resolved rather than something escaped. Marcus walks Walter to the edge of the lot, where the glow of the convenience store windows meets the darker stretch of highway beyond. They speak without cameras now, without crowds, just two men standing in the aftershock of a long afternoon. Marcus explains the local outreach services he knows, the shelter that takes veterans first, the contact number for a community officer who actually follows through. Walter listens with tired gratitude, nodding slowly, eyes drifting once more to the German shepherd standing beside Lily. There is sadness there, but also relief, as if letting go is painful yet necessary. Marcus presses a folded card into Walter's hand and promises that this will not be the last time they talk. Walter thanks him, voice rough, and then turns toward the sidewalk with shoulders a little straighter than before. The sky begins to clear and late sunlight slips beneath the clouds, washing the plaza in warm gold. Lily walks the dog along the painted lines near the pumps, the leash loose, her steps careful and proud. The German shepherd matches her pace perfectly, head level, ears relaxed, tail steady. People who had once watched with suspicion now offer small smiles or quiet nods as they pass. The shift is subtle but real, respect earned not through force but through calm proof of character. Marcus watches them for a moment, letting the scene settle into memory without resistance. The emotional weight he carried for years feels different now, lighter not because the past vanished, but because it was finally faced. The guilt that once echoed with every remembered command softens into acceptance. He kneels beside the dog again, resting a hand against warm fur, feeling steady breathing beneath his palm. There is no dramatic revelation, no grand apology spoken aloud, just a silent understanding passing between them. Forgiveness arrives quietly, like the end of rain rather than the crash of thunder. During the drive home, the highway stretches ahead under fading orange light. Lily sits in the back seat with the dog's head resting comfortably on her lap, her fingers tracing the edge of its ear while she talks about school and weekend plans. The German shepherd's eyes close halfway, calm and content, the disciplined posture finally giving way to rest. Marcus checks the rearview mirror more often than necessary, not out of worry but out of gratitude, making sure the moment is real each time he looks. The world outside continues moving, trucks passing, signs flashing by, but inside the car there is only quiet breathing and the soft hum of tires on pavement. What began as noise and confrontation ends in stillness and connection. Marcus realizes that some bonds do not disappear when lost, they wait, patient and unchanged, until courage and compassion bring them back into the light. Loyalty survives time and fire, and compassion reveals truth before authority ever can.